So when we talk about job search, we are under new circumstances with the situation in the world today. Um, some of the things are very similar to how they were before, but there certainly are new challenges. The simplest form of advice anyone should be giving you is to just do it. I mean, you have to get out there, put yourself in front of employers, whether it's on a video interview, a networking opportunity, uh, any way that you can find out more information about the mission, vision, and the goals of the companies that you're trying to work for, the more successful you'll be. When we talk about some of the tools, MinnesotaWorks.net is a very powerful tool. It is run by the state of Minnesota for the people of Minnesota and employers. It is free for both employers and job seekers. It's a place for you to post your resume and browse jobs. You can have up to 5 different resumes on there. Excuse me. Now, when people think about job search, they often look at quantity over quality, and I'd like to encourage you to look at quality over quantity. The more high quality your job search is, the better your results will be. It is work, but let's talk about some of the ways you can improve your job search. Advertise jobs. So you see a job, let's use a simple example. Customer service. Lots of jobs out there are customer service. That is also one of the most impacted fields with the changes to interacting with people in person. So if you're looking for customer service jobs, do you have additional information? Do you have additional details? Is there something about the experience that you have that you can bring to the table? Do you appreciate the mission of the company? Um, do you have inside knowledge on the industry? If your customer service for a bakery is different than customer service for Google. When you talk about job titles, often employers like to have different job titles that do the same thing or very similar things. I know that Target does team member or team associate, and other places might call them cashiers or sales or any number of other things. Look into the depths of what the job actually entails and make it a part of your resume and the way that you communicate what you do. So like I said, don't focus so much on quantity. You want to prioritize based on proximity, based on what they offer or the mission of the company. Are they green? Are they environmentally friendly? Do they have charities that they contribute to? All kinds of different things can make them a standout employer and a reason that you want to work there beyond just having a job. Employers don't like to hire people that just want a job. They don't care what the job is. The the fact is they want to feel special. They want to feel like you know who they are and what they do, and you want to be a part of that. When you have an opportunity or see a job posting, respond right away. You want to be one of the first candidates in there. Quite often, employers see candidates as they come in and they get hooked on someone early in the process, and that person has an advantage. Obviously, they're qualified for the job and they've met all the requirements and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. But if you are the last person to submit, you're going to have an uphill battle if people already are a frontline favorite for the employer. Um, Basically, the old adage that if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Um, if it sounds like they're paying too much for what the expectations are, be cautious, use common sense. If they're paying you $30 an hour to do uh, making cold calls or doing something that's really entry level, doesn't require any experience or education, and it's paying an insane amount of money, it could very well just be a scam. When in doubt, try to track them down by phone, talk to an individual at the company, find out where they're located. Generally, if a company you've never heard of is trying to get you to work for them and they're in Australia or China or Hong Kong, it may not be a legitimate offer. When we talk about follow-up phone calls, we also mean that you want to separate yourself from the um, the crowd. You want to be someone who is more than just another applicant online or another paper resume. Um, it's the um, the idea that you can be more than just another applicant, make a connection with them, find common ground. There's a lot of different strategies you can employ. Obviously, if you have common interests or you went to the same school, raised in the same town, just find common ground and try to become a front runner for the positions you're interested in. Pam, do we have any questions yet?
Not quite yet, John.
Okay. All right, we are going to start with MinnesotaWorks.net. It is the largest database of jobs in Minnesota. Um, there is some things that Minnesota Works does that prevents other sites from collecting the information that they contain. Um, there are websites that accumulate all the different uh, jobs that are posted and then post them as if they were their own, and Minnesota Works prevents that type of activity. The state of Minnesota has employees that work for the state that actually investigate companies before they're able to post jobs on the website. So don't forget, you can have 5 resumes. They're 5 different resumes. You could have resumes based on the same job, set a different way. For example, cashier and team member and sales associate. The other thing you can do is have uh, resumes based on um, higher or lower, more senior or more entry level positions that you're trying to get. It's up to you. The flexibility is there. The only thing to keep in mind is you can only have one LinkedIn profile. So you want your LinkedIn profile to convey that you're available and qualified for all the jobs that you have resumes out there for. So just be cautious of that. Usually we recommend a time-based approach where you're going to try and get the next level job, the senior level job, for a period of time. And then as that becomes more of a concern with money or running out of unemployment or something, you would then move to something easier to get until you reach the job that you actually are able to attain. So, number one tip for internet job searching: avoid job board addiction. That means the people that think they're going to have a successful job search because they they look at 20 jobs a day, they apply to 10 of them, they're doing 40 or 50 jobs a week, and frankly, there's a lot of better things you can do with your time than just applying online. Um, Building relationships, nurturing that network of people that you've worked with, that you are friends with, you're related to, people you'd like to work with. There's a lot of different things you can be doing beyond just applying for jobs, and many of them pay dividends much faster and much more clearly than just the constantly doing the same thing and hoping for the best. Networking, if you don't have a LinkedIn account, that is definitely a great opportunity uh, for your job search. Ideally, you're maintaining your LinkedIn, you're adding people to LinkedIn, and able to use that network when the time comes. Pam, is there any questions?
Yeah, one person asked, is there a limit to how many follow-up calls you should make?
I'm going to assume that means that you're uh, following up with the same employer multiple times. I would say, yes, there's definitely a limit. Um, if the process is taking several weeks, then you're going to have more follow-up calls than if they say next week we'll let you know, or next week they'll have more information. Um, if it comes to the next week and you haven't heard from them, then you're going to make a follow-up call. Generally, I would say no more than one or two a week is more than enough for the most part. Your goal with the follow-up call isn't just to ask them for information and get the information. Part of the goal of the follow-up call is to say, okay, I applied early in the process and the job was open for another 2 weeks. You don't want to wait until they contact you to remind them that you're interested in the job, that you're a real person. So instead, you're going to contact them and say, "Hey, I just was following up. I wanted to make sure that there wasn't any questions about my application or my resume. I'd be happy to help in any way I can." Your goal is to remind them that you are interested in the job and bring you to the forefront of their thought process for determining who's going to get the position. I think that answers that question. Another one?
Yep. How can I trust Minnesota Works? Somebody had received a letter from unemployment about nationwide scams, and they just want to make sure that they can trust us with Minnesota Works.
All right. So when we say a website or um, basically any publicly visible tool, website, company can become part of a scam. That is never going to change. Uh, you need to use your own judgment, your own understanding. What we're telling you is that Minnesota Works. You have to, let's go back to that screen real quick so I can verify. Make sure you spell out Minnesota. If Minnesota isn't spelled out, then you're going to go to the wrong website. So that's the number one thing. MinnesotaWorks.net. Make sure works is plural, and then it's .net. It's not .com, it's not .gov or .edu or any of the other ones. You have to be at the right website. Minnesota Works is run by the state, the same department within the state as unemployment. So when we tell you there are scams out there, we're definitely not talking about our own website. But that isn't to say that someone could send you information or requests for information through the mail or email or something and try and scam you and claim to be part of MinnesotaWorks.net. So just use your best judgment. Generally, you're going to want to make sure that instead of clicking links within any emails or communications, you manually type in the website you're trying to go to avoid some of the phishing or whaling scams. Other than that, uh, it's been around a long time and it's part of the state. You can trust it. Oops, I went too far. All right, so we'll move on now. Networking. It's about connection, not perfection. So a lot of people like to tell me that they're gonna wait until they've updated their profile and made all the changes and made it perfect or made it pretty or made it the way that they want it, and they get into this endless cycle of updating their LinkedIn to a point they're not happy with it. Then another day passes, then another day, and then a week, and then a month, and before you know it, they aren't visible to anyone for months, and they've not gotten anything out the LinkedIn as a networking tool. So don't worry about finding the hiring manager, the person that has the perfect job for you. You need to connect with people that have some desire to see your success. So if you worked with someone for 5 years or 3 years or 1 year, they're going to know who you are, what you're about, and be far more likely to be interested in your success, to have some desire to see your success. If you're connecting with only people at the top tier of a company or hiring managers or HR, they have no connection to you. They have no reason to want to see your success. So the idea is to get as many people in your corner as you can. Connect with people that you've worked with, people you're related to, your friends, obviously family. Um, this example on the screen talks about your cousin, Mary, Mary's friend Tom, Tom's former boss, Pam's friend John. So you see that you didn't know John, but you got there through networking. He needs someone, and John trusts Pam. Pam trusts Tom. Tom trusts Mary, and Mary obviously trusts you. So the cascade of people interested in success, people vouching for you, people that gave you the opportunity to find out about a good opportunity. So one of the notes I have is uh, sociologists have found that acquaintances are more likely than family members and friends to give individual direct information um, and recommend them for opportunities. I'm going to screw up the name, but that is from Mark Granovetter from Strength of Weak Ties. Um, that basically tells you that uh, your best friend that you've had for years or decades is less likely to recommend you than someone you knew only in passing at work. That doesn't mean you shouldn't connect with them and make an effort. It just means be aware of the value of people you barely know. Double check that went to the right slide. So I've already talked about this. Who's in your network? Friends and family, colleagues, acquaintances, business contacts, vendors, uh, people at every step of the way you interact with the world, the way that you perform your job duties, you got your education, um, civil groups, religious groups, everywhere that you meet people is an opportunity to improve your network. Let's see. Um, I'm going to ask a question. So let me turn this on quick. So I want all of you to think about how many people you know on a first name basis. What do you think the average number of people that the typical person knows on a first name basis? So that's going to be you call them up and you say, "Hey, this is Sean." For example, I would say that, and they know exactly who you are and what you're, why they would be interested in what you have to say. Uh-oh, we might have a cheater here. Put it in the chat how many people you think. I know most of us couldn't come up with the names off the top of our head, but the fact is, the average person knows 300 people on a first name basis. That's a lot of people. It's a lot of opportunities for connections and for building your network and finding success from networking. All right. So Technically, making contact with employers has become easier because of the situation in the world. Um, Walking up to the door and making a stop at a local business is no longer really appreciated or expected. They're going to want people to connect with them virtually or make the effort virtually. If they're willing to meet with you in person, that is an entirely different step at this point. But you can make a lot of connections through the phone. Uh, LinkedIn will certainly be able to help with that. We'll talk a little bit about it in a few more slides. Um, Informational interviews. If you haven't done an informational interview, get out there and do informational interviews. They make a huge difference. Um, Pam, you have a question for me?
Well, I've got a few that came in here. Let's see. What is the best way to network in this day and age if not being able to meet anyone?
Networking isn't about meeting someone in person. Networking is about communication. It's about nurturing the common ground and the relationships that you have. All it takes is a little bit of effort. Um, the idea, or the simplest way to think of it when I try and teach people, is um, you start with one. So you have someone um, that you work with that left and they went to a different company and you'd love to work at that company. So you start talking to them, you communicate with them over the phone, email, um, obviously the virtual ways with Zoom and other things. And from that conversation, you try and get the next person you want to talk to. Who else should I talk to? Don't, obviously don't be rude about it, but don't let the conversation end. Don't let the networking piece end until you have that next step, until you have someone else to talk to. And do that with all of your connections. Do that with every opportunity, and you will have a huge network in a very short period of time.
Okay, and then I have one. Is LinkedIn the same as Minnesota Works? Can you quickly explain the difference of that real quick?
So LinkedIn is definitely different than Minnesota Works. Minnesota Works is an old-fashioned job board or job bank where employers post jobs, job seekers post resumes, and then they search each other's different things looking for ones that they like, and then they submit their resume for or an application for a position. It's the really old-fashioned, the birth of the internet way that we've um, done job search online. Similar to Monster. I know there are some more advanced tools in Indeed and ZipRecruiter and all those other ones, but basically, employers post jobs, job descriptions, opportunities, and then job seekers are posting the resumes, and they search and try and communicate and connect that way. The difference is LinkedIn is a networking first platform. The idea is to connect with people, is to know where people have worked, where they got their education, to understand the relationships that you have and grow them and connect with additional people. It's also a learning platform. They've got LinkedIn Learning. They've got other tools on there. We'll talk about some of them in a little bit, but basically they are very different. However, LinkedIn does have a job availability aspect of it, and then they want to use your profile instead of a resume in that scenario. Okay,
You got time for one more?
sure.
Okay, with tailoring multiple resumes to post on minnesotaworks.net, do you recommend including different positions held in the same company, or simply highlight the position and experience which highlight the specific tailored resume?
All right. So the expectations of any individual employer or HR person is going to be different. But what we would communicate or expect you to do in that situation is if you did a job that was um, intermediate level and you've been out of work now for a few weeks and you're really getting into overdrive with your job search and you really want to take the next step and get a senior level position, then you would post your resume based on the expectations of that job. How many years you did the work, what type of leadership you had, what type of training, all the things that are directly relevant to what you're trying to achieve. Now, what that means is at the same time, you're not going to post anything unrelated. So if you were going for middle management, let's say a um, career force location manager, okay, just something simple. So if you had experience driving a fork truck, driving a semi, doing all kinds of physical labor, and that isn't at all relevant to the job you're trying to get, you wouldn't put that on your resume, on the resume you're submitting for that job title. So in that scenario, you would have a resume for career force manager, and then maybe the workforce development rep, and then maybe you have one that's okay, if everything falls apart and the funding doesn't work out or something, and I really want to go back to driving semi or working in a warehouse, then each of those resumes would have different things on them that were directly related to the job. I know that was a simple example for me. I hope it was understandable for you. So we will continue. When we make contact with employers, don't don't think that their obligation is to give you a job. Your goal in making connections with employers, with hiring managers, with the people that have the power to give you an opportunity is to connect with them first and then decide if that's an opportunity you want to take advantage of and convey to them your value. You need to deliver what they're looking for. They hire people not so that they can pay tens of thousands of dollars just because they need to, they pay people. They need you to perform things, and you want to convince them that you are the best candidate, the person who provides the most value for what they're looking for. Um, I strongly recommend informational interviews. They are going to be related to uh, the reverse of a normal interview. So if you wanted to interview for a job as a customer service specialist or customer service agent, um, an informational interview would be the opposite. Instead of being interviewed for the position, you would interview the employer, you would ask them questions. Ideally, you would give them commitments of no more than 20 minutes. You give them questions in advance. You would encourage them to, excuse me, you'd encourage them to continue if the time permitted. But you're going to talk to them about the position, about what it's like doing the position, what it's like to work there, what the opportunities for advancement are, all kinds of different things from your perspective that matter to you. And it's your opportunity to say, hey, I think it's a great fit. Thank you. Or to say, well, thanks for the interview. I don't feel comfortable. You don't have to make a decision right away, but it is your opportunity to decide if it's a good fit for you. You don't want to take a job and then quit in a few months. No employer wants that. All right. So one of the in this business of helping people find careers, if networking is not producing results, then real networking is not taking place. So if you feel like you've never gotten results with networking, you've never gotten a job from networking, A, you're probably mistaken and it was related to networking, or B, you're having issues with the way that you're networking or calling networking something that it's not. From my perspective, I've had at least 14 jobs in my life, and every single one of them was because someone told me that I they thought I was a good fit, that I should give it a shot. So I can certainly say that networking works for me, and it is important. All right, so telephone communication, really important since that's the majority of the way we're going to talk to people. Um, you want to make sure that you're prepared. You know why you're calling. You're not just um, small talk the whole time. You're not just trying to make people laugh. You're performing a uh, conversation with a goal in mind, and you've prepared some talking points in advance. Um, you practice out loud. That's a tough one for all of us. For example, teaching in person, I can see faces, I can see body language, I can do all kinds of things to realize how to steer the conversation. It is very challenging to teach like this without an audience to communicate what's going on. Um, it's hard to enunciate and project when I'm talking to a computer, but practice, practice, practice. Dress well. You are more confident. You convey that even over the phone. Be organized, be prepared, be timely, and smile. We can hear smiles. I know that I'm not a particularly big smiler, but you can hear the difference between a smile or not smiling, even without training. Okay, next. All right. So when we talk about social media, yes, LinkedIn is social media. However, it is designed to be social media for professionals. It was designed with the intent of networking with professionals, connecting professionals to each other. None of the other social media's platforms offer that type of interaction. Everywhere else, it's going to be social, um, basically exclusively Facebook and Twitter and blogs. Really, you're talking about every whimsical thought you may have. LinkedIn, you should only post things that are relevant to your industry, your company, your goals professionally. This stat is off. I guarantee you that every single employer these days is checking online. They're not going to hire someone without checking available information. So what that means is if you're unemployed, if you are looking for work, it isn't just LinkedIn you have to focus on. You need to update your Facebook, Twitter, and blogs to reflect um, positivity and um, the type of culture that the employers you're trying to get hired by would expect. It can't just be your LinkedIn profile is professional and you're smoking and drinking and doing things that are questionable on the other platforms. Oop. So always consider Googling yourself. If you were to Google my name, which is Sean Morgan, you might find some information about, well, someone with a lot of tattoos, long hair, and he can sing and play instruments, lead singer of a rock band, has the same name as me. So if he's up to some shenanigans and someone was to think that was me, that might be an issue. But being aware of it is the first step. So if you Google yourself and find out what it says, you can head off any confusion that you might encounter. Um, all right, we'll continue. So LinkedIn has a help system, help platform, has all kinds of information on it. If you're confused about LinkedIn, your first step could be here. Your second or first step might even be Google. You just search for what you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to do. Um, there are all kinds of helpful things on there. For example, if we look at, let's see, oh, we don't have an example right away, but basically, let's talk about making a connection. We'll get to one where I'll talk about the example I was looking for shortly. So making a connection is as simple as searching for someone on LinkedIn. You can search in the search bar at the top from the home screen. You can search virtually anywhere except for the jobs category at the top. I don't know if you can see my mouse. The jobs is in the center of the list to the right of search. If you search for someone, you go to their page, you click on connect, or you click on more until you find connect. There are other ways to connect with people. Some of those are the recommended in your network. So if you click on my network, you would see recommended people based on where you worked, where you went to school, and some of the other information that LinkedIn has. If you're looking at an employer, you can search for an employer. If you wanted to check for Target, or in this case, Saturn Systems, you'd go to the page for Saturn Systems on LinkedIn. That's on the next page. So Saturn Systems Software Engineering, it shows you how many people work there. It shows you how you may have connections to them. It shows 20 people from your school were hired here. It's going to be different for everyone. It's going to be based on your where you went to school and where you've worked. Pam, you have questions for me?
Yes, I have a few related to Facebook and Twitter. So I'm going to kind of combine a couple of them. So somebody deleted their Facebook. Should they start a new one? And what should they do if their social media accounts are set to private?
All right. So the first thing to understand is, number one, if you're not comfortable with something, don't do it. Work on why you're not comfortable with it. Make sure you're approaching it from the right perspective. Um, Try and understand the employer's perspective, where if someone wants to work for them and they don't exist on social media, they don't have Facebook or Twitter, no LinkedIn, it's going to be a red flag for the employer. They're going to think that you should have that in 2021 and beyond. There should be some digital trail of your existence and what you're about. Um, but if you're not comfortable with that, then that is up to you. And I don't want to force you to do it, but I will tell you it will make your job search harder if you do not exist on social media. Um, if you deleted your Facebook, figure out what the reasons were and if they're still relevant. And you don't have to post everything under the sun on social media. You just need a presence. You need to exist. You need to have some kind of interaction and some people that know who you are uh, somehow connected to your accounts. I, if you're struggling with this, certainly reach out to me or your local career force for some more guidance one-on-one.
Okay, do they have to have another social media presence if they're already on LinkedIn?
Um, it's one of those things where you should. It's obviously not the dire situation of not existing on social media, but you should exist on at least one of the other big three beyond just LinkedIn, because I know it's hard to believe, but people can fake a LinkedIn account to pretend to be someone, to steal an identity, to do all kinds of things. And an employer just wants to feel comfortable hiring people and that they are who they say they are. There are other things that become relevant, but overall, it's not that much work on your side to have a basic LinkedIn account and Facebook or Twitter or something else that can help sell yourself. The other thing you have to remember is some people in the hiring, HR, etc., are getting savvy to the fact that people are very aware of the professional side of LinkedIn, and they're looking to get beyond just what you want people to see. And if they can't, they're going to be suspicious. You might get better results if you have more than just LinkedIn. Okay, got another one for me?
Um, I do, but I think we'll wait until the end, just because I know we're getting close to time, and I think we'll have some time at the end here.
Okay. All right, we'll get through this pretty quick, and then we'll have probably 5 to 7 minutes for questions. So this example has the background image. You can make a background image yourself. LinkedIn helps you with this. It tells you exactly what size picture to make for your banner in the background. For example, this cliff area on Saturn Systems Software Engineering. You can do the same on your profile. And there's several, probably dozen or 100 websites that have the perfectly formatted um, background images, banner images for LinkedIn. So you can do Google search and find those very easily. If you're able to make your own, being unique is always preferred. That would be my recommendation. If you have the creator or maker in you to do that, one thing I have found that I prefer, and this is my personal preference, I like pretty pictures like anyone else. I'm a photographer. I do that stuff, but I like it when you combine that with a quote or something that is a little more unique than just a pretty picture. So back to making a connection, you can search for people. They will come up as a list. There is a caveat to this. If you search for people and they come up with this opportunity to connect, there was a bug in LinkedIn for the longest time, or at least I like to call it a bug because it made no sense why they did this. If you click connect from some of these screens, it's going to just connect and send the request to connect. And we don't want you to do that. We want you to add a note, to personalize it, to say, hey, we used to work together. It's been a decade. How are you? I'd love to connect on LinkedIn. Um, you don't have to say a lot. You just need to remind them how they know you and that you do want to connect with them. Do not ask for a job. Do not ask for help. Do not do any of that. Your first objective is to connect. To get the opportunity to add a note, we recommend you go to the um, their actual page to get the opportunity to click connect there. Then it'll pop up to add a note. Um, so here you can see underneath each of these people, it says connections that you're connected to. So it tells you that if the names have been removed from this, by the way, this isn't exactly how it will look for you. Just for privacy, the individual names were removed and the profile pictures were replaced with the empty profile. But if you click on their name, you go to their actual page and click connect there. But right below it, it does show you how you know people from this list. So there are people that have worked where you've worked. There are other people that are connected to each other. So the other thing that I should mention with this on the screen is you see the second kind of floating to the right. It's to the right of their name. That's how you're connected to them, what tier you're at. So a first level connection is going to be someone that is in your network. You have a direct connection to them. These are the people that you can do the most with on the platform of LinkedIn, where you can send messages, you can receive messages, you can chat with them without having to pay for InMail and other features. Um, A third level or a second level connection is someone who's connected to one of your first level connections. That makes them a second. And then third level would be your someone who's connected to your second level. Now, the first tier is entirely within your control. That's the people that you've requested a connection from, or they've requested a connection from you, and you both have accepted. That's your first tier network. Everything beyond that is entirely automatic. So your second level connections are going to be based on who you're connected to at the first level. And people can move from second or third or beyond just by actually connecting to them directly. All right. So navigating LinkedIn, this is a tool that will help you. So if you're in a pinch and you want to, or you got an interview, let's say tomorrow, you don't have the opportunity scheduling wise to connect with someone at CareerForce, even though this is a service we provide, we're happy to prep for interviews with people, do a mock interview. LinkedIn has a feature that if you click on the jobs area, you can go to, so this screen shows you what the jobs area basically looks like. You click the more with the down arrow and then click on interview prep. The hardest part about interviewing is number one, we don't do it very often. So it's probably been years or decades since you had to do an interview. So being prepared for it is very challenging. It's not something we do regularly. The single easiest way to be prepared for an interview is to have some of the questions or the most common questions. So this tool is going to give you the 26 common questions and help you understand what makes a good answer. It can perform some AI features. It can also have you send your practice questions to a person you're connected with. So if you are connected with a former boss or a current boss, and you can ask them to give you some feedback based on your answers. So you can record a video or write a response. It's up to you. I strongly recommend practice on the recorded video. That you're practicing. It is a challenge. It is something that we're not good at right out of the gate. It's something that we have to do repeatedly before we have any inkling of being good at it. So the video can help a critiquer or someone providing feedback explain how your mannerisms or body language is communicating something different than what your answers are trying to say. It can be a very helpful tool for people that don't have the opportunity to interview very often. The other thing to note here is if you're doing informational interviews, um, that's another opportunity to practice. Yes, you're not going to be answering questions on the spot, but you will be more comfortable in the one-on-one environment where you're trying to communicate and provide the correct body language and answers. All right. Let's see. So they also have artificial intelligence providing feedback. You can retake it or you can save it. Uh, Again, this is just a tool for you. It's very helpful, especially in a pinch where you don't have the opportunity to work with someone you know, someone you're really comfortable with. Um, it can help quite a bit. Just knowing those questions, just hearing the questions before you hear them in an interview is a great opportunity to do better in an interview. All right, I think we got one more slide. Yep, once you save the video answers, you can request feedback. and you can search for a connection. But you do have to be connected to the person. So your first step would be to connect with the person you want to receive feedback from, um, and then to send them the feedback. Don't blindside them with it. Talk to them before you just send a request for feedback. They might not understand what it is. They might think it's suspicious. All right, Pam, you got some questions for me?
Yes, I do here. Let's see. So what do you, somebody was wanting to consider a career change, how would they represent themselves on LinkedIn? For example, this person was a senior consultant with experience in the agricultural industry. They need those certifications on LinkedIn if they're going to stay with that. But if they're considering career change, how would they represent that?
Okay. So when we talk about career change, it's not something where we're gonna just snap our fingers and be qualified and able to do something. We would want to make sure that it's a viable transition, and our experience should relate to it somehow. So in your situation, when we talk about LinkedIn, I'm gonna go back to a screen that can help with this question. It's a little ways back. All right, let's go. All right, so this screen shows multiple people's headline. So what they say under their name. They get to choose what this is. Very often you're going to choose your job title. So if you're looking to change jobs, to change careers, to do something different, you don't want it to say your old job, what you used to do. You want it to say what you're trying to do or what you're trying to change to. So the way that we do that is we say the job title, and then um, that we are looking for opportunities, that we are trying to become that. We are going to basically do it the same way we would if we were unemployed and already had that title. So, a simple example is uh, let's do truck driver again because that's pretty easy. And a lot of people want to transition to that these days. They're attracted to it for whatever reason. So if you've worked in a warehouse your whole life for 10 or 12 years and you're not able to do it anymore, or really don't want to do it anymore, so instead of saying warehouse associate or warehouse fork truck operator, etc., you would say professional driver or something that conveys the job, and then you would say in transition or exploring opportunities, interested in new experiences. Any way you can say it without saying, "Hey, I'm unemployed and I want to do this job." That's about as simple as I can say it. Again, if it's something you need help with, reach out to me or your local career force, and we'll do the best we can for you. Next,
Okay, another person asked, after
you're
submitting,
muted.
am I still? Can you hear me now?
No, headset muted.
No.
The little button.
No, it's not. Hmm. They can hear me, Sean.
They can hear you.
Yep.
Well, I can't hear you. All right.
Hmm.
Speak up for me so I can hear you.
So after submitting a resume on Minnesota Works, will they get responses from sites like Indeed or WebSource and other sites like that, or will they work directly with the employer?
So um, so what an employer chooses to do or how they choose to hire is going to be up to the employer. So if, for example, Medtronic, they almost hire zero people direct. They're going to work with uh, staffing agencies, usually multiple staffing agencies, to fill the roles that they're looking for. and that would include um, employers, because the staffing agency is a legitimate employer. They would be able to post on LinkedIn and hire people on their behalf. Is that the question that was asked?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Do you have another question? We probably have time for two more.
Can you put volunteer job and caregiving for a parent in the same at the same time on LinkedIn?
So it's going to be a situation that is very sensitive, very challenging. Um, if your primary job is related to caring and empathy and helping others, then it's probably an accepted situation where you are caring for someone who needs your help. Um, if it's a situation where you're like a powerful salesman, you're high powered, you're running, working 60, 70 hours a week, and you took time off to do this, that might be a negative in that situation. So I'd be careful to the situation where it was best to say something like that. I don't want you to lie, but I do want you to put what's most important and most valuable. So there's a small misinformation out there about resumes, about your LinkedIn profile. Your everything on your resume, everything on your profile is true, but everything that's true isn't on your resume or isn't on your profile. So just because something happened in your history does not mean it has to be on your profile or on your resume. So um, do what makes the most sense for your situation. One more.
How far back should work positions and companies go on your resume?
So if you listen to LinkedIn, that's a good question. If you listen to LinkedIn, they want you to go back every single step, all the way back to when you didn't work. And that's just stupid. Don't do that. Um, if you want to get people contacting you to be a fry cook or cleaning crew at a park or whatever you've done in the past, by all means put it on there. But if you only want to do the job that you've recently done, that you've been invested in for the last uh, latest part of your career, then make sure what's on there is relevant or at least 10 or 15 years back. That's about as far back as is reasonable to go. Beyond that, the skills and technologies and things that you did aren't going to be very uh, relevant or current. So going back even further is just giving too much information, and in the state's suggestion is 10 or 15 years is far enough. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of LinkedIn and internet and social media. Don't forget, come back on next week, May 4th. We have Facing Unemployment at 50. I don't teach that. You'll have another group. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your week.